Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Triffon. I direct wine tasting events for Plum Market, and I've got one of my best friends in the business, Rod Johnson, who is the coordinator of our stores in Ann Arbor. And what we're going to do today is give you our personal impressions of Bordeaux's 2022 vintage, which is getting a lot of ink or online airtime right now. And I should mention that behind me, I've got the new winery of Linchbage, and Rod is going to tell you what cellar he's got behind him, which is obviously impressive. Thanks in advance for your attention. Rod, do you want to lead off and give folks snapshot of how you feel about 2022?
Okay, thank you, Madeline. First of all, behind me is the cellars of Pichon Baron, Second Growth, and Pauillac. Uh, in terms of Bordeaux experience, they'd certainly be in the top 10 of all Bordeaux estates. And they showcase what a lot of Bordeaux people do, which is put tons of money and detail into their cellars. So if you walk in any of these places like a cathedral, uh, 2022 Bordeaux, perhaps the most pre-hype vintage that I've been a part of, and I've been in the business for decades, and I can go back to when the 82s are coming out, uh, and and this was of that stature, if not higher. So I'd say with that in mind, when I tried to launch this past February, I'm sorry, in January, um, you go in with a lot of doubt about is it really that good? Well, I thought the vintage delivered as much of the hype as I thought was deserved. I'd say it's one of the most consistent vintages that I've ever been a part of. From top to bottom, from left bank to right bank, from Merlot to Cabernet Franc to Cabernet Sauvignon, everybody did great. It's astonishing. This is one of the few vintages I can ever say that you can perhaps buy blind and still come away very, very satisfied. So you would pick your own personal favorite, and that's probably very, very safe from top to bottom. Now, that means that there's probably a concentration of quality, meaning that a lot of the wines fall into a pretty close category, all great. And you can dive deep and go into the Cru Bourgeois, or you can go for the very best, because some of the very best have done as well as they perhaps ever will. Um, Historically, I would liken this vintage to astonishingly 1975
Hmm.
in 1961. Both those vintages were stern, big, broad-shouldered vintages, and this vintage has that same aspect. Dark fruits, and they can last a lifetime. I say Bordeaux are like your kids. If you want to buy this for uh, as a birth year, by the time it's 21, these vintages will be spectacular. But by the time they're 40 years out, they will be unbelievable. So you can treat them that way. But now is the time to buy because now is the best time to buy. I think they can only go up from here. I'll let you go, Madeline, then we can get into our favorites back and
I
forth.
loved your enthusiasm, and I've been around long enough too to know 75 and 61, so it was and 82. So it's neat to hear you talk about those. By the way, Rod and I were both at this wonderful tasting that takes place annually. It's in Chicago. It's called the UGC tasting, and it's a preview of the 2022 vintage with dozens of estates. So this is personal experience we're speaking of that's very recent. So it's coming from the head and from the heart. You did a great job of snapshotting it. The only thing I'll add in terms of the vintage, it is a new weather phenomena. Yes, they are experiencing global warming, and this was uniformly, from anyone who wrote about it, a hot vintage. But what was very interesting about it, they compared it actually in heat almost to 2003, which is hot. But the big difference is it was hot from bud break to harvest. So, the supposition is that the vines got used to the heat because what happened at harvest is the grapes uniformly had moderately high to high levels of acidity. So you've got ripeness, but acidity. So the wines have concentration, lift, And I will also say spectacular perfume, even at this point. The Bordelais are getting really good at making their wine show well young and aging well. When asked, even top people like the Lurton family, Henri Lurton shrugged his shoulders and said, when asked, where did the acidity come from? He said, we looked at everything. I don't know. And to have somebody that immersed in the region say that, it is a happy mystery. Within it, like Rod said, I mean, I mirror his feelings about it. If you're looking for superstar communes, probably Pauillac. Cabernet did wonderfully well um, in this vintage, and right bank, specifically Saint-Emilion, whose balance and acidity is gorgeous. The thing that struck me in tasting too, Rod, that I loved, they all seem to be very thoughtful about the amount of new oak. I can't remember more than maybe one or two wines where the new oak sat on it. You know, um, some people were talking about using larger barrels, 400 liter as opposed to 225. Everyone's playing a little bit with fermenting vessels, amphora, etc. But the oak did not dominate the wines. And I will say, the
I had
Bordelais.
something there just
Oh,
about that,
please go right ahead.
because I think this is a trend. Um, the sensitive part of all winemaking worldwide is the weather. It's warmer,
Mhm,
it's drier, and so people are looking at it a little different right now. In Bordeaux, for instance, the one thing that they want to protect is the freshness
mhm,
and the liveliness of the fruit. And the way you do that is keep it away from the yolk, not use too much.
mhm.
If you use too much, you're going to tire it out, and that's all you get. So going forward, I think in years like this, I think Bordeaux and a lot of other great red wine producers, you'll see less and less oak, and you'll just see more terroir, more fruit, and that helps everyone. So
Well said. And I think, frankly, they are getting pushed in that direction a little bit from the public, because at least, top wine writers, sommeliers, etc., will complain if there's an excessive amount of new oak. Now, there are economics involved too, because new barrels cost a lot of money. So if they can pull back on new barrels and make better wine, know, that's terrific. The one thing I want to say before we get into our favorites. I think I liked the top whites better than you did a little bit. I mean, the Bordelais were saying that it's not really a great white vintage, and what they mean by that, the wines are showy now, but they're not long distance runners. But I would sort of PS that, saying, well, who keeps their white Bordeaux forever unless it's Margot Blanc or something like that,
well,
you know?
I chime in again that
Mhm,
that what they've learned in the last few years is again keep the oak, use as little oak
mhm,
as you can. They went through a stretch with the whites and the reds, especially the
mhm.
whites though, of really trying to oak them up like white burgundies, and white
Right.
burgundies backed off the oak. So is Bordeaux. So they protected the fruit. They have enough to deal with, and it's a matter of not just overworking it. So in this vintage, again, you come in with remarkable acidity and freshness. And in other years past that they could not have handled this. So I think again going forward, we can expect not every vintage like this, but certainly we above average vintages going forward.
And as a PS to white Bordeaux, for those of you who are, getting, turned white, looking at white Burgundy prices, I mean, top white Bordeaux can be, it's premium, but in many cases it's slightly more accessible. So, especially if you enjoy Sauvignon Blanc moderated by Semillon, don't forget white Bordeaux. Rod, you want to launch into maybe a handful of your favorites?
Yeah, this is vintage. Every wine tastes great. So now you've
Mhm.
got to go back and go, well, what were the
Right.
best of the best? So in some cases, let's just start in Pauillac, Pichon Baron. Okay. Pichon Baron, Pichon Milan, always right there. Both were spectacular. Personally, I have a preference to Pichon Milan because that's more my style. But I respect everything that Baron does. It's right behind me. And they were spectacular in that same year. Now, also in Pauillac, I think a couple of sleepers are Darmalac
Oh,
and
yes. Hmm.
Obataille.
Mhm.
Both of those are Pauillacs that both estates probably did as well as I ever have seen them spectacular wines. You jump into Saint Julien, let's
You liked Becherville, I think, and I
I like
love
Bishop
Grenier du
quite
Cru.
a bit. I like Brainier du Cru. Now,
Mhm,
Gloria, there's another one.
mhm.
They, it's actually a regional Bordeaux, but they're owned by the Domaine Martin. Saint Pierre is what they own, and that was a spectacular wine. So some of those are my favorites. We jump into Margaux. Uh, I did not get to try Chateau Margaux itself, but
Me
I
neither, but I love
thought
Lascombe.
Lascombe's Prairie La
Mhm,
Chine. I love, okay, the sleeper there is Syrah.
mhm.
Always an excellent estate. It's a Cru Bourgeois. They're making really, I think, third, fourth, fifth growth quality right now. Um, some of the other areas, Saint Estephe. Now, Caslaverie, I think that's another sleeper that's not up with
And a
the
buy.
and a great buy.
Mhm.
You go into Leastrock, I like Chateau Fort Casa Dupre. So this is the kind of vintage, if you jump down to a place like Leastrock, which is usually kind
And
of linked
Moulis, right.
there, and Moulis, like
Mhm,
Chasplain, for
mhm.
instance, is another one. But Fort Casa Dupre made by far the best wine they've ever had. It's nice, it's plump, it's rich, and if you had a blind tasting, you would not think it's a Leastrock. Beaumont is an Omedoc. That's another sleeper. Now let's jump down over into Grave. I thought Smith Oliphant spectacular.
Oh, white and red,
Absolutely,
you
red and
know.
white,
Yeah.
red and white. If we jump across the river, I thought the wine of the room for me that day was Beausejour.
Bonjour, Becco. Yes.
Outstanding. I don't know that there might be a better Centimillion out there right now. I don't know, but they are right there. So those are kind of my list, and I don't want to jump all over what you have because you have others too.
Yeah, but I mean, we pretty much, Rod was kind enough to start a little spreadsheet with his favorites, and I tag team it. And for the most part, we're in concert. I mean, Domaine de Chevalier, white and red, absolutely. Oh, Bailly is another one. Both for white and red wine. That's O, then Bailly, not as well known as Smith Haute Lafitte. And I would make a case for Domaine de Chevalier. So, Pessac for both red and white. The people who are making great wine didn't make a mistake on their whites. It's not they made great wine. Beausejour Becot from the right bank was a superstar. And so was Chateau Canon. If you're neither of these are nosebleed, though they're not inexpensive. In Margaux, perfume galore. Bran Cantenac, Lascombe, Giscourt, um Molisco, and again to Rod's point, Syrah, but you're not going to make a mistake in Omedoc, though I will say that for me, the Pauillac wines are just the essence of pure Cabernet with freshness and not too much oak. And that was personified by Dormeyac, that's owned by the Mouton folk, right, Rod?
Yes.
And also for me, the wine for my personal wine of the tasting was Lynch-Bages, who's, fifth growth that if there were a reclassification tomorrow would, happily be a second. And that's just my opinion based on what the family's doing. Anything else to add? A personal favorite of mine that's been delivering every year is Branier du Cru from Saint Julien. And my favorite of the Saint Juliens was Léoville Barton. But, at the end of the day, if you want to talk perhaps about what our plans are for bringing in 22s, will they be appearing soon, Rod? When can people start
Yes.
asking about them?
We've brought in a few already.
Mhm,
And I think in April we'll have a big feature in our
mhm,
sale flyer of a lot of the ones that we've mentioned. We're on the lookout. So we're planning on jumping in top to bottom. We've got first gross on order.
mhm.
We've got the super seconds, the big stars, the Cru Bourgeois, and the Cru Bourgeois as kind of like everyday wines. So the best kept secret about Bordeaux is there's so many of these that are just everyday Bordeaux that are
Capital E,
sure.
capital D, right?
Yeah, that
Right,
and you can
right.
save
Mhm,
and then you can also
mhm.
put the top ones aside. Um, one of the things that people I keep hearing is, why should I spend $200 or $300 for some of the top seconds and first grows and things like that? Here's the difference. The very best estates have second labels and third labels. So what goes into their Grand bin is perfection. It's as fine a wine as you will see out there. If you're some of the fourth and fifth gross or the top Cru Bourgeois, you can't do that. You really have to put everything in your Grand bin, but you can't separate that many out. So yes, when you go into the very best estates, there is a jump up in price, but at the same time, the quality is absolutely spectacular.
And if you're
They're
going,
just
well, that's lovely, I can't do hundreds per bottle, then you look at the second labels, which is, these are not, substandard declassifications. These are actually, the whole concept of a second label was created to protect the Grand Vin. So that in many cases, it's simply younger vines that go into the second label, or it can be simply a vineyard selection that isn't showing as much power as some others. So, a second label from a classified growth that for whatever reason you choose not to afford is not a small thing. You can look forward to emails from us. You can look forward to a 2022 Bordeaux tasting. We are currently cheerfully arguing with each other about when we should do this, but and don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at Plum, and we're really easy to find, Rod.Johnson or Madeline.Triffon at plummarket.com. And
and a lot of the ones that we have mentioned in here are already available. Um, there's a few others I hadn't mentioned, like Marjos,
mhm,
Cantamural, Lanasan, Perrybone, Potensac. All those are well under $50 per
mhm.
bottle. We have Brand Catnac in stock. We have Ponte Canet in stock. We have Smith Lafitte in stock. We have Bolnog, which is a Pomerol. We didn't mention that's superb. Lillian Ladois,
Always a favorite for the money, right?
we have Brainier du Cru. We
Mhm,
have Gloria Lagrange. So we
mhm,
have a number of these in stock, but they're
mhm.
but we're Plum Market's buying in 2022. So stay tuned.
Thanks a lot for your attention, Rod. It's always a delight chatting with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great, Madeline.
So marketing, that's the end of our